All right, it's already 7:02. Maybe we can now start tonight's session. Again, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us in this month's Ministry of Testing Meetup. I'm your host for tonight, Richmond. I'm currently a creative team lead in Cambridge University Press and Assessment. You can find me in LinkedIn and also in writtenandtested.com. So this is Ministry of Testing PH. Ministry of Testing is present in 77 cities worldwide. It actually started in Cambridge, UK, but here in the Philippines, it started in April 2019. So we're already 3 years this 2022 and counting. So just to share future events for Ministry of Testing PH, in September 22, we'll be having Introduction to Cloud Computing and Cloud Practitioner Exam Review together with AWS Club Pilipinas. For October, we have our date, October 13, but we're still yet to find our speaker for that time. And for November to December, we'll be having our annual test automation bootcamp. So watch out for details on how you can join this bootcamp this year. Also, Ministry of Testing Philippines is looking for additional volunteers. So I actually started as a volunteer in Ministry of Testing, and now I'm like already a regular in this community. So I hope that you'll be also joining us and helping us be passionate more for testing and its practices. So for more details, you can visit our Facebook group, facebook.com/Ministry of Testing Philippines. For tonight's Q&A, we'll be using Slido as usual. We'll be sending the Slido link in the chat later. For our speaker tonight, Jason Lee is an experienced quality engineering leader and advocate with over 17 years experience across government, telecommunication, media, web domain, and gaming domain. He has been practicing in the software engineering areas, both in the research and industry. He has transformed software engineering best practices through software engineering quality strategies, processes, testing processes, training, infrastructure, and tooling. He has been actively working with MoT-PH back in 2020 as speaker, co-organizer, and as one of the MoT-PH Essential mentors. He is currently the Director of Software Quality Engineering with Aristocrat, driving the quality transformation for the organization. He leads a team of 70 engineers across the organization globally. So to share it with us his journey on quality engineering, here's Jason Lee. Hi, Jason.
Hey, thanks for having me. And yeah, Jason Lee, I'm going to share my screen quickly. Ooh, can you see my screen? Right. Can you hear me clearly?
Yep, you're fine and we can see your screen.
All right, let's do it. So, yep, good evening, everyone. Welcome to my talk today. I'm Jason Lee. Won't introduce myself too much. Some of you probably know me in the past as well. So today I'm going to talk about quality engineering, my journey. I'm not going to promise I won't bore you guys to death because it's dinner time over there, and it's sort of like my sleeping time here in Australia. I hope I won't bore you guys to death. I'd like to share and unpack my quality journey as part of the quality engineering shift. And as what Richmond has mentioned also earlier on, yeah, I'm currently serving as a director of quality engineering with Aristocrat. Aristocrat is one of the largest gaming company, and it's based in Australia. So yeah, I work with a global team across in the US, Australia, as well as India, looking after quality engineers and some STET as well, software development, engineering test. So yeah, just to give you guys some background as well, before this, I had a short break, and prior to that, I worked with freelancer.com, that's where I met Anthony and the crew here as well. And yeah, I've been involving in MoT pretty much on and off, and try to support the Ministry of Testing, specifically for the Philippines, as much as I could from the area of quality engineering. All right, let's kick off with my journey. So what is quality engineering here? So quality engineering, it is a discipline on the process which applies rigorous quality checks from each stage of product development. It is an approach where it incorporates quality from the time that the product lifecycle, the ideation, development, executing the processes in order to achieve the goal of the product. And quality engineering encloses or encompasses all the tasks from the ideation to execution, where it is a shift left driven approach. And more importantly, quality engineering bears the idea of the team members and stakeholders taking a shared responsibility together, continuously delivering products with the right quality for the stakeholders, which obviously is our customers that are using our product. So that's quality engineering for you. So let us dive in a bit detail on my quality journey from QA, QC, all the way to quality engineering. So in my journey, being a quality space over 17 years, started off in the days where in Motorola days, I call Motorola days because I work in Motorola as my first job as a software engineer, followed by a software test engineer. I still remember in that role, I was trying to press the button, the emergency button on the walkie-talkie for more than 100 times to make sure that the button still works and still emits the blinking colors and the sound accurately. So that you could imagine during that role itself, it is basically going through a set of measures, a set of procedures, formal procedures to make sure that the quality of the product actually is maintained and meet the set of benchmark. And any errors or any issues found are being eliminated immediately. And the focus of being a quality control is where is to ensuring the product and basically the product itself are not only consistent, but also in line with the customer's requirements or customer specification. In this case, imagine the emergency button must and always work all the time. It must not fail. Imagine if it fails once, what happens to people's lives? So that was then, it was my role back then where my journey was more towards that quality control. So then I move on to another role with quality assurance, where quality assurance, where in my previous role in Dolby, in Iowa, startup company, where I involved a lot in assuring the product specification being met. And one might ask, what's the difference between quality assurance and quality control in the journey? In quality assurance, it is more a defined focus on the quality, and it has processes around that. Not to say that quality control doesn't have process, but quality assurance has processes around to detect and remediate as many defects as possible to ensure the product is usable and stable, and again, according to the specification. And it becomes where it has processes around, as mentioned, where it also has a mix of both manual and limited automated testing, not so well-defined processes outside the quality space, and a few of the metrics like defects metrics, and those some of the quality metrics. So that was then my definition of being in a quality journey as a quality assurance. And then fast forward going to quality engineering, that was where my role was with freelancer.com and my current role as well in Aristocrat, where quality is focusing on a shift left driven approach, where during this journey itself, quality assurance is part and parcel of the quality engineering, and it also spans across the entire life cycle, not only just software testing, not only software development process. When the team has a strong quality engineering, it begins long before even development life cycle. That includes that quality engineers being involved during the stage of the requirements. Talk about how do we test this requirement, wearing the hat of testability from the ideation creation phase and beyond. So that was for the quality engineering. So this is not the end. Quality engineering, obviously, there is a maturity of quality engineering journey where we have the advanced quality engineering, or we call integrated quality engineering, where it encompasses the DevOps continuous testing culture within the quality engineering. So that includes having a CI/CD pipelines across where the QA process, the QE processes, actually quality engineering processes, is being built in as a quality and preventing the defects. So it has the maturity of CI/CD, where we have the continuous integration, continuous deployment, as well as we have a lifecycle automation. It's not a one-off, just automate these functional tests, but it has a lifecycle automation with the SLA, SLO, and all these different stakeholders' involvement to make sure that we build a quality continuous feedback to our customers of all the time. So that is where the journey of the quality here. So I just quickly just segue to how my career progression. I want to share on the journey as a quality space here, where I started off as software engineer, as mentioned earlier on, and being a software engineers, and then curious to be a software testers. Back then, as a manual, wanting to know more, learn more about the domain knowledge of the communication, even though I have zero knowledge at the first place doing my bachelor, because I don't have the engineering background. But yeah, that's where I started to involve in that, in the testing, and enjoy that ever since. I didn't look back ever since. And yeah, being involved in the quality engineers, and then become a test lead. And during this period of time, I pick up a lot of the fundamentals of the testing domain, not only the testing processes, but the domain knowledge, as I mentioned before, and also some of the non-technical knowledge as well, like some soft skills as well. And along this journey, I do pick up some automation skill set, creating framework from scratch, automation framework from scratch, using Python, some scripting Perl scripts, and also using some third-party tools that to automate some of the test scripts. So after that, was involved more and more towards the DevOps, embedded within the development team itself, working very closely with developers, understanding their thought processes and collaboration very closely with them. And that's where I gained the T-shaped skill set, which I will cover a bit more in the next few slides if anyone has not heard of this term before. So that's where I started to have that skill set before I move into the quality engineer space. So obviously, in terms of what I see and observe during this quality journey, there are some of the culture challenges, some quality barrier as well. So in general, quality team, or we call QE team, in my journey, again, it doesn't necessarily mean that your journey as well. It tends to be more reactive instead of being proactive. And I say this is not only because of some cultural differences, not only that, to a certain extent, yes, because I do manage in some offshore teams in the past, in the Asian countries. It doesn't mean that that's the only reason, because in my current role, I manage, as I mentioned earlier on, manage teams in US, in India, as well as even in Sydney itself. I can see some differences, but generally, the quality engineer space, the engineers are a bit more reactive compared to being proactive. There's more to do on that, a lot to do. And not only the cultural differences I would like to emphasize, but it also depends on the mindset of the team, mindset of the culture of the organization and overall, that will make a huge impact in terms of the quality barrier of the product that we are delivering. I'm going to touch a bit more in the next few slides on that, and so hang in there while we go towards the next slide. So in this slide, I'm just going to quickly just flash it through. And how many of you actually that have seen this before or have used this already in your organization? I have a show of hand. I hope you guys, some of you might at least have. If not, a handful of you, where this is basically the continuous testing model as part of DevOps. And this is from Dan Ashby, one of my favorite test advocates that I follow through with all the blogs and all the testing articles. So yeah, in this model, he advocates the testing in everywhere from the DevOps perspective, from a time that it's coding all the way to delivering, where we come to monitoring, we can even test as well. So this is where we call the shift left, shift right approach, different approach here. Not only just shift left, but also shift right as well. So I'm just going to skip through this because this is not the main focus of that. I'm just going to give you some context of where this is coming from. So having shared with you a brief quality journey, my observation, I would like to share 5 challenges that I faced throughout the quality journey. And I'm pretty sure that some or most of you are familiar with this, or some of these at least. So the first challenge that throughout the quality journey that I faced is simply fence, or fences we call. We have a dev, development, and QA or quality fences here. So development and QA are set up with totally two different teams, and always in the butt heads. At one end, developers want to ship and check in the code as quickly as possible. And on the other end, testers feel that they are pressured to keep things at pace, and often view as the team or the person that slows things down or holding back releases. So that is the mentality or the challenge of the dev and QA fences that I'm mentioning here. Obviously, you guys probably have heard some of the testers' observation. I'm just going to read up one of the common ones that I know of is from a QA is the biggest stress comes from developers getting the code to QA towards the end of the sprint, which whoever actually applies the agile practice now or before, then we only have a couple of days to find as much as we could and get those issues resolved before it's released into production. So how many of you actually over here actually find this very common observation, right? So always in a rush, QA is always like in the bottleneck, and there are sort of fences that, oh, here you go, QA, dev just pass these things around. And that mentality, that challenge must stop, right? We shouldn't have the fence at the first place, because at the end of the day, and talk about quality engineering itself, not a QA or QC. Quality engineers are working together with the developers to make sure that we deliver the product with quality as a team. We're going to talk a bit more in the next few slides on that team itself, okay? So this is one of the first challenges that I face throughout my quality journey. Second challenge is obviously delivering product with quality. Everyone says that, oh, we want to deliver product quality. Saying it's always easy, right? But anyone actually, if you want look at the detail itself, where we look at this particular model, this is the iron triangle of product of the project management. So it is cost versus scope versus time. And you can see in this figure, quality is the centerpiece of all these three aspects: cost, scope, and time. How do we balance these three aspects with quality in mind? So as I mentioned earlier on, quality is always thought as like a bottleneck, but it all comes down to, at the end of the day, the scope, the scope, the cost, and the time that the business willing to take at the end of the day. So let's quickly just cover through each of these items, and I have some questions as well. I hope that will help to give you guys insight as well. So first of all, talking about scope, or the bottom, your bottom left, or my bottom left, scope. So scope of the product. In order to deliver a product with quality, the challenge is the scope. How flexible are we with the scope? What is the MVP, or the minimum viable product here? As being the first version of the product that has the basic set of features. So what is the element, or what is the formula, or what is the ingredients that the product needs to have to be in order to be successful? The scope must be well understood, right? And when I say that, it means that the requirements, the specification must be clearly articulated, and it shouldn't have any uncertainty that it should work that way, it should work this way. And most importantly, also, that throughout my journey I observed is the scope creep, where there's additional scope added towards the end or later in the feature, and the specification has been changed. So that adds up to the constraint of the quality to deliver a product with quality. So how do we manage scope? I'll talk about this in a bit. So that's scope for you. And then we talk about cost. Yes, we have cost with respect to quality. We have all the budget and all the number of team members involved in the testing, and let alone the tools itself that we use, right, for the testing, whether it's automation tool or whether it's a TMS, test management systems, or so on and so forth. So that is also one of the factor as well. More so in my current role in Aristocrat, where we talk about hardware, where we have constraint with the cost when it comes to some supply demand issue because of the Ukraine war, because of the COVID issues, and so on and so forth, right? So obviously this impacts the quality. Instead of using that particular cabinet for the gaming, we cannot use that quality that cabinet anymore. We have to use some sort of different cabinet, and that impacts the quality. That impacts the delivering product with quality challenge here. And finally, time. Right, time is very crucial here. Where how do we ensure that the time, the estimates, essentially, that we estimate for the effort, duration for testing and development across the team are accurate in order to deliver product with quality. I'm not talking about regression testing. I'm not talking about specific testing time. I'm talking about the overall delivering product with quality, the time. So we have different stakeholders that for example, in Aristocrat itself, we have dependencies with other studio games. We ship product with the games. For example, with the game studio, we have dependency. There's a gap there. There's a time dependency with them as well. When it comes together, how it comes together before delivering to the product. Think as like a different components or subcomponents that must happen together as part of the product, delivering product with quality. So it's very important to be able to provide estimates of whether it's development, whether it's testing, whether it's a key from the gaming or other dependencies, the effort and the timing with respect to complexity accurately. So in summary, in this challenge in my test journey, where we deliver product with quality, is having an accurate estimates and tracking the project with the quality risk, cost, scope, and most importantly, having a cross-functional team with an open communication to discuss these aspects regularly helps a lot to minimize this challenge actually that I mentioned early on. So that is with the second challenge. Third, obviously that's very, very, very clear. Here is quality is everyone's responsibility. Let me ask the team here or the audience here some questions here. So is software defects or bugs owned by quality solely? Is code review owned by development solely? Is every single issue found by the field or in the field or by QA is responsibility of quality? Is the quality product successes or failures weigh entirely on quality? So those are some of the questions that I'm sure you guys have the answer to some of them at least. That ties back to why the challenges here is that quality is everyone's responsibility instead of quality. So that ties back to the point where dev, development, and QA fences here. So there shouldn't be any fences at the first place. There shouldn't be any segregation at the first place. It's all we are working towards as one goal to deliver product with quality, right? So it's everyone's responsibility to make sure that we do our due diligence to ensure the quality product. Code review, do our due diligence with unit tests, have a proper code coverage. Proper means that have a measurable code coverage and tested prior, passing on to the quality folks to have another perspective. So that is important. And from a quality perspective is to ensuring that all the issues being found from exploratory, from automated tests, from functional tests, and so on and so forth, are being captured with the metrics or with all the facts and information that the team gathered, rather than keeping it aside and hiding away. Those shouldn't be at the first place. So that is with the quality is everyone's responsibility here. And then the next challenge is very common here, as in common in my journey observation, is the automation is QA mindset. So a lot of times that in my previous career as well, that people tend to say that, well, automation, oh, that's QA's job, that's not my job. So that mindset shouldn't happen in the first place. Why? Because automation, in my view, doesn't limit to QA. We have to have a clear processes and ownership of the tests. If you see on the right-hand side, this is a testing trophy, where this testing trophy, it details the different type of tests, models, specifically used in web domain, but not limited to web domain only. I've been using in my team as well, in my current role as well. And we should have automation lifecycle at the first place. And it shouldn't be limited to only a QA, R&R, we call roles and responsibility. It is beyond that. Why? Because, for example, static tests, unit tests, and those supposed to be written as well as being mandated through development team. Yes, we can involve a QA team in the security members in reviewing them and whatnot, but that responsibility could belong to the developers. And when it comes to integration on the testing trophy and the end-to-end test as well, arguably, who writes the test? Who is responsible for that? Is it only QA, or is it QA and development team members? So those are the questions that we ask. So ideally, automation in this aspect, it should come from both development and QA partnership. When I say partnership, means that there should be a synergy and focus to automate different types of tests and factor in those efforts, those life cycle as a part of process, as part of the agile release deliverables. And this points back to, we have, for example, if the team automates certain tests itself, we check into the trunk. Before checking the trunk, we run a staging environment, and if there's any failures, the developers actually can look into that, and then together partnership with the QA to understand and analyze why it happens. And we have SLAs involved, or within internally we have the SLO as well defined to make sure that the team actually looks into that and fix them rather than waiting and waiting, right? So those has to be articulated very clearly as part of automation lifecycle. Again, in this challenge is not an overnight thing, it's a culture that needs to change through the team. As you may say, the team means that development and QA team doing this together as one team. So that's the challenge here, the mindset change, and that's for you. And then the last one, the challenge here I'd like to share in my quality journey is the quality issues is due to bad QA. It's very familiar here, right? So whenever there's quality issues, we have a bad QA. And why we have this mindset in so commonly? Why? Because obviously QA unfortunately is on the last line of quality defense. We call it like QA is always at the end of the gatekeeper, and that's bad because quality issues is due to bad QA. Not necessarily, because QA at the end of the day, we cannot provide all the support for the product quality. We shouldn't be shifting the responsibility of the issues quality to QA team. That's wrong, and that's a culture, as mentioned, culture of the organization, culture of the team, and culture overall. So it is responsibility of the entire team to look into that. Who, for example, who describes the requirements, all the way to who supports the release issues, right? So in my experience, I'll share a few pointers here that capture quality issues. So things can go wrong at any stage of the product lifecycle, right? Agree? And there could be incomplete requirements that coming from the analyst, and the project goes into a wrong direction from the start. And I've seen one, I can give you an example recently in the field. There is a different logic being understood from the requirements from both development team and QA team to test it. However, in the requirements, customer's perspective is different and it interprets wrongly. And therefore, we have a few issues. Is that because of bad QA? No, it's not. So my point is actually there could be other examples here. So like incomplete requirements, misunderstood requirements, and developer may misunderstand what is expected from the requirements, and also both QA as well, right? Misunderstood from how to test them. And developers may refactor the functionality and forget to inform QA about this and check it in and then done, ship it to production. And say that, well, that should work, right? And QA engineers probably could also skip some of the test cases because in his or her view, I've executed many times and it behaves correctly, so it should behave correctly. Or DevOps engineer, if you are doing the quality engineering perspective where you're integrated with DevOps engineer does not run a new script during deployment, right? And as a result, the production doesn't work correctly. So this is not entirely due to bad QA. So those are some examples that I'd like to highlight here, that quality issues is due to bad QA is the challenge that we face in the industry. And this has to change. All right, how we go with time. So yeah, good. So let's move on quickly on having mentioned all these challenges in detail. So let's talk about some of the key points to overcome them. So one of them is through collaboration, as I mentioned earlier on, collaboration. So in the test journey or quality journey that I'm involved, I can see that through the from the collaboration with dev and development team and QA team, pairing up together, whether it's from a triaging defects together, pair programming, and initiative of quality initiatives together, and doing the estimation, brainstorming those requirement specifications together, it goes a very long way to have the culture and ensuring the quality of the product is at its best. And as the saying always goes, right? Talent wins games, but teamwork and intelligence win championships. So in order to do this, obviously it's so easy to say that collaborate, right? But how do we do that? From a quality perspective itself, or from a quality journey experience, have defining a policy, agree together across the team, whether it's development, QA, business analyst, operations team together, and easy to follow through and well understood and sign off on those will be a good start before we embrace this together as collaboration in a team. So that's collaboration example for you. And I'm sure there's a lot more examples of collaboration I can talk throughout the night, but I'm just going to give you some of these hints of how that works in my quality journey. Secondly, most importantly, is the roadmap, right? Having a clear quality roadmap, having a clear roadmap from development as well as part of the journey, it helps to seek clarity, understanding where the team or where are we heading towards. Say, for example, in the quality journey, we are heading to where are we now, and the deliverables roadmap, where are we now with respect to development. And not everyone actually have all the strengths, right? So having, back to the point of collaboration, having the collaboration and having the roadmap clarity and piggyback on each other's strength helps a lot in making sure that we journey through the roadmap together. And having a clear journey also, a roadmap as well in your team as well, it helps to understand where are we heading and help to navigate the testers as well. What's next for me, what's next for the team, and so on and so forth. So roadmap is very important here to overcome the challenges of just rush going through this release. That's it, done and dusted, and then no substance at all. We need to have a roadmap, right? What's the next step of strategies? Building the next automation tools, or having the next quality initiatives built in across the roadmap. Those are very important, and this all comes from a team, not only from the leaders, but also from the QA team members as well. And finally, learning is a key here. So as I mentioned earlier on, the T-shaped testers. So T-shape means that if you see on the right hand side of the slide, it's a cross-discipline expertise on the horizontal, and on the vertical, there will be a deep discipline expertise. This is where we call T-shaped skills. It can apply for not only for testers, but development for any other profession as well. So in this T-shape, as I say, T-shaped testers, where you can see some examples here. It can be a testers and a deep discipline expertise testing, but you also have a broad generic expertise across, like the domain knowledge, some knowledge about the operations. And within a deep discipline expertise, one could have some knowledge and interest to upskill themselves with toolings, automation, and so on and so forth. So those are important and relevant here as testers, as we are evolving with different domains, testing different domains and different skill set as well that's relevant to keep up with. And it's also very important to gather honest peer feedback constantly to ensure that we continue to strive to learn all the time. There is a link that we can, at the end of this talk, I will share this slide with you as a link from a Eurostar talking about sharing about how to become a T-shaped testers. I recommend everyone to jump on that. It's free. It's called Survival Techniques for Testers Beyond the T-shaped Testers. So there's a link that I've embedded there in the reference slide later on. You guys should check it out. So in essence, learning is important for everyone here, whether you are a leader, whether you are testers, or whether you're a manager, or so on and so forth. So I'm glad, for example, that we can see that MOT has so much learning, upskills, resources for the team, for the testers actually, to learn and advance their knowledge here. So finally, I just want to share my slide here. Some of the few outcomes of my quality engineering journey to date. Yeah, I managed to nurture the quality culture and shift left mindset, not only within the quality team, but outside the quality team as well, being able to influence them. For instance, when I talk about automation itself, the developers started to involve in the automation framework and started to put in some libraries developed around that to help the testers to automate some of the test cases that requires some drivers and some keywords to be able to do end-to-end or integration tests. So that's one of the outcome. Secondly, quality engineers wearing the head of testability, understanding it's not the job of quality engineers is not just do the test, but thinking aloud how to test this, how to test that, and asking that question helps to uncover more of the product quality and revealing any gaps in the requirements, most importantly. And thirdly, yeah, quality engineers in my journey, quality engineers involved so much earlier in during the product development, such as an estimation and regular clarifying what specification it is, and obviously the test notes, or we call development notes here, asking why are we doing this, why not doing that, and so on and so forth, rather than taking it as the grain and salt, asking the questions. And fourthly, in my quality engineering journey, I managed to reduce the manual tedious test executions time through test automation. Yeah, to date, it has been successful. I continue to do that, deliver that, and empower, most importantly, empower the quality team to be able to independently write the tests, co-reviewing the tests together with developers as well. And finally, which is very important, is the culture, open platform where whether it's you are developers, whether it's QA, whether it's you are BA, coming together as one team to look at, okay, yes, we feel we have some issues in the field. How do we learn the failures, and what actions that we take as a preventive action, rather than pointing fingers? Oh yeah, QA didn't do this. Oh, development team forgot to write this test, or testers didn't skip this test. Rather than doing all these things, we learn, capture the RCA, root cause analysis, and have an open platform to understand why this happens and how do we learn that actually. So back those days in freelancer.com as well, we have this RCA type as well, where it's not finger pointing. I find it very good and very good platform for the team to collaborate and work closer than before to understand where's the gap and how do we take a preventive action moving on. So with this, I've end my talk today. We have any question and answers from everyone. And as promised, I have the references slide here as well. We'll share as part of the slide back with you guys.
Thank you very much, Jason, for that talk. So just to share some things also that stuck with me. I like the idea of quality being everyone's responsibility. So yeah, it's one of the mantras that we're trying to live with as well, because oftentimes we see QA as just the gatekeepers. And as you mentioned, there are fences. So I like the idea of that we all share the responsibility for doing quality. And I also like your suggestion for upskilling. I think in our industry, there's so many new technologies coming out. There's new tools, new processes. Most even so for automation, where there are new tools every now and then. So I think it is important for us to upskill and continue that learning as well. And from our audience, yep, we have a few questions. Let me just share my screen as well to show our questions. All right. First question, Jason. Being the head of quality engineering, how are you developing your team? Do you have a skills matrix?
Yeah. So yeah, this is a good question here. So in the team, first of all, we look at their the skill metrics, we look at what is their passion, what direction they're heading. Whether it's a technical, some of them we have IC role, where some of them want to have the skill metrics towards the advanced or intermediate testing skill set. And there's another extreme end of leadership skills metrics, where we talk about the test leads skill metrics. So we have this cross-pollinated together, and then we have these metrics that the team can adjust and can mark them. And then from there, we know what are the needs of the team. We cater the trainings for them accordingly and group them in the different groups, and we group them together and learn from one another, and obviously sign up for conferences as well regularly. And that's how one of the ways that I develop my team at this stage.
All right. For our next question, what are your top 3 metrics in quality engineering? As I understand this, maybe like how do we measure whether the quality engineering that we try to implement is effective?
So first thing is not the number of defects, obviously. Just a kidding point here. So the top metrics in quality engineering is the first of all is where what is the maturity level of the quality of the product. When I mention about quality maturity, it's not about defects again. It's about how mature the product has evolved from one release to the other release in terms of the product features. Talk about product features. Why? Because if the metrics, if one release itself, a specific release itself, the product with the features itself has any issue, let alone more advanced features going to be introduced, right? So that's one of the metrics that we measure. And secondly, is obviously the happiness. In my team, I measure what sort of happiness metric in their rate of quality engineers, whether are they happy or not with where they are in the journey within the team. We have a mixture of the questions for them every quarter, and they provide this feedback to the team anonymously. Okay, and finally, another metric that we look at in quality engineering is the collaboration with the development team and engineering, how closely they are together, and that is being measured objectively as well. I can explain a bit more, but maybe not in this stage if there's too much details here, but these are the top 3 metrics that we measure for quality engineering.
Thank you for that, Jason. And those are interesting metrics. I think you have metrics to measure how people collaborate, and also the happiness metrics. I've just heard that now, so it's interesting to capture that as well. Focusing on people, not just on the output that we're creating.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Because it is in reality, Richmond, because like in this case, I'm managing 70 people at the moment across the global team, and it's impossible. It's not realistic to measure based on the defects, based on the quality of the product as a business. Yeah.
For our next question, any tips for those who are new in the QA automation?
I would think that first of all, do not go straight into 2x or 2y just for automation. Ask yourself why are you interested in automation, and what area aspect of automation that are you interested. Some of them might be interested in API, some of them might be interested to understand about the framework itself. The tips would be that, and also try to utilize the language like Python or the Perl or C or C++, because those are the fundamentals of automation in creating test scripts. And finally, tips for those that are new to QA automation is don't give up, and don't be intimidated by X language or Y language or X Z tools. Always have that openness to embrace them.
All right. The next one is regarding tooling. What framework do you use in your testing?
So yeah, in my current company, Aristocrat, we have our internal tool that we build using Python, um, purely hardcore, and we also have some REST APIs that we build again around the libraries as well to send APIs across the cabinets, the EGMs, gaming EGMs. So those are the hardcore framework that we use. We do not use any sort of like third-party tools for our testing. Yeah.
All right. The next one regarding shift left testing. So this one, they are planning to implement shift left testing in their team. May I ask what are the steps in implementing this?
Yeah, I think always beforehand, we first understand what shift left testing means. Secondly, I try to understand where in the journey of the team is at the moment. Ask that honest question. Don't ask only the team itself, but also ask the other stakeholders like products, team, or even the engineering core team, and to ask that honest question: where is the team at the moment, and what is the idea of shift left testing in your view set? The shift left testing in the industry or in the paper might be very different from what it is in reality in the respective team. So one size doesn't fit everything. So ask that question before you implement any of these first.
Okay, thank you for that, Jason. Um, Aside from ISTQB, do you have any other alternative testing certifications that you can suggest?
Yeah, BBST. I love that. And we also have the I don't really believe in testing certification these days. I used to do that in the past when I was first few years in the career, in the testing career. Involve a lot on the certification, not certification, testing, like the conferences like CARS. As I mentioned earlier on, BBST is not a certification; it's more like a course that you go through, you know. And
Mhm.
obviously, there's a lot of other courses out there, like the Agile Fellowship, the Agile Testing Fellowship as well. I would say learning is more important than certification, at least from ISTQB perspective.
Right. For the next one, what application do you use to track your testing activities?
We use in my current role, we use Jira. I'm not
Okay.
ambassador of Jira. Um, based on the question. And we use test management system to track the testing activities, and we have also our internal dashboard as well that tracking our testing activities. Yeah, yeah.
All right. For the next question, this is interesting. Is peer review testing necessary?
I'm not sure what does it mean. Does it mean that peer review testing, as in you test it first and you pass on to someone else to test? Is that something, or what is this specifically? Specifically,
Any comment from the one who asked this? My impression for this is peer peer testing, like testing together, so that one can validate the other's test case. But I'm not sure if that's yeah.
I see. I see. If that's the understanding, yeah. I mean, yeah. In certain cases, especially in my current role as well, my team actually has certain functional areas that are at risk, and they do implement sort of peer review that they actually sit together and test it, and not only tester and testers, but also with developers. We have that session as well, and then we found quite interesting observations from this activity, where they found some issues, some improvements, some gaps as well when they're doing some testing.
Mhm. Right. For the next one, do you sorry, the order changed. Someone liked the other question. So what are the free tools that you can share that you use for automated testing?
I would say that if for web one's actually the automated testing one, the API one is the Postman. What else? For the API testing, and then for automated testing, the free tools. There's a lot actually. I don't know which specific, is it functional or non-functional? If non-functional, there's a list of the free tools out there that we can use as well, like the free get link ones. And then if you can use open cover for code coverage, okay, this is something separately, separate from automated testing, but code coverage ones. For functional one, I would say depends on what sort of specific domain that you're looking at. For my area, currently, we are using some of the free tools, open source for memory profiling, like what's it called, GCOF to I understand what's the code coverage that we have. We run it through with DevOps together, automated them together while we run through the tests here. Yeah.
All right. Maybe last 2 or 3 more questions. For the next one, do you provide RCAs? I'm assuming this means root cause analysis, but I'm not sure what's the context though.
Yeah, that's what thing. Yeah, I also curious about what I try to answer. So RCAs, especially in my current company, in my current role, we provide RCAs from a different perspective. We have this RCA template that we follow through the detection, root cause, injection root cause, and all these different fields, the 5 whys. I'm not sure if have you heard 5 whys model framework, where why is happening, why does it happening, and so on and so forth. And obviously preventive action. So these fields, as part of the RCA report or RCA field, is being filled together by developers, QAs, BAs, and so on and so forth in the team session. And then when we provide those input, then we provide them together as a team. So I think the context is that, do I provide RCA maybe a quality team? I would say no. It's an entire team's responsibility to provide RCAs back.
All right. I think for our last question, I think this is a good question to end tonight's session. Going through the challenges you've encountered from being a QC to QE, what drives or motivates you to pursue this career?
Yeah, I think one of the things that that motivates me is the value that QE brings in at the end of the day to the product, where people acknowledge the differences, not only the product quality, but also the culture change. I can give you an example, like in my current role. Yeah, when I first started, yeah, there's zero automation, there's zero quality ownership from a team. And 6 months or even beyond currently today, there is a culture shift. There's a shift in the team that actually changed things around, and that changed inside out. And that really drives me to pursue this career even more, to see to put more initiative, quality initiative more in this area, and even beyond the career as well, like within the role. Yeah.
All right. Sorry, let me just squeeze one more question, because this one is also interesting from a different perspective. What are you looking for when you're hiring a senior QA?
Yeah, first of all, I will be looking at someone that has experience, obviously, in testing, solid as in they have a strong understanding of testing methodologies, testing techniques, and secondly, the maturity of being able to independently test without being supervised necessarily, and thirdly, when a higher senior QA, someone that can be accountable to the task that or the activity that he or she is being hired for or being assigned for. So those were sort of the benchmark that I'm looking for when hiring a senior QA.
All right. Thank you everyone for those wonderful questions. And Jason, any parting words or anywhere they can find you?
Pardon? Sorry, Ishmael.
And any parting words you would like to share, or if they want to reach out
Oh,
to
yeah,
you,
yeah, yeah. So
where they can find you.
again, yeah, quality is everyone's responsibility. Again, I want to emphasize again, and yeah, keep pursuing this career if this is what for you, and I'll continue to encourage everyone here that quality is not something that should be shunned away, and it's equally it's important as part of the building a product together as a team.
And with that, that ends our tonight's session. Thank you very much, Jason, and those who attended. See you again on our next meetup in September. Have a good rest of the day, everyone.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.